Hello, everybody. Today I'll briefly talk about evolution and its relevance to the dermatologist. Webster's dictionary gives several meanings for the word evolution. In today's context, we'll follow the definition given by Sir Charles Darwin in his landmark paper on the origin of species by means of natural selection, where he proposed the theory that various types of animals and plants have their origin in other pre-existing types, and the distinguishable differences are due to modifications in successive generations. And this he came to this conclusion by careful observation of thousands and thousands of species of animals, plants, fossils, and especially the mockingbirds, which are found in abundance in the various volcanic islands of the Galapagos off the coast of Peru. So in his 5-year ship's journey, he collected all these. Then he brought them back and set it up in the London Museum. And after observing it, he proposed his theory of evolution. And this was greatly opposed, particularly by the Church of England, because it went against the tenets of creation. Eventually, however, his observations and arguments were so convincing that his theory was accepted by the scientific world. The next question was, how are these modifications proposed by Darwin transmitted from one generation to the other? The answer to this question lay in a remote monastery in Czechoslovakia. Gregor Mendel was a very junior monk, and he wanted to be a teacher, but he couldn't pass the teacher's exam. So the senior monk told him to take care of the sprawling garden around the monastery. And there he started planting garden peas, rows and rows of them, and followed them up from generation to generation for many years, keeping meticulous records of the changes from one generation to the other. And after many years, he proposed his theory of inheritance. Unfortunately, his paper lay buried in the archives of the monastery, and it was only after his death that it was resurrected. But we still honor him by calling it the Mendelian inheritance. But we still did not know what exactly carries the information, the message from one generation to another. We had to wait another several decades until Watson and Crick proposed the triple helix of the DNA and explained how the transfer of genetic information occurs from cell to cell. C.S. Dobzhansky said, "Nothing in biology makes sense unless viewed in the light of evolution." This was a very prophetic statement by this geneticist. Second is evolution of the subject of dermatology. It can be considered in three main eras. The first one from the Bronze Age to the death of Christ. There is no doubt the birth of Christ. There is no doubt at all that skin diseases existed in ancient times. The mummified remains of boy king Tutankhamun of Egypt in the 14th century BC shows horrendous acne scars, and his tomb was filled with pots and pots of acne preparations, because the ancient Egyptians believed that their young king will continue to use the ointments in the hereinafter. The Ebers Papyrus records skin diseases between 3000 to 2000 BC. The Indian Vedas record around 1500 BC details of leprosy and vitiligo. The 13th chapter of the book of Leviticus in the Bible, written by Moses, is solely devoted to the diagnosis and management of skin and venereal diseases. In those yesteryears, skin diseases were managed by physicians. The second era extends from the 1st century AD to the 19th century AD, which includes the dark ages of medicine, when very little progress was made in the field of medicine. Though the first textbook of dermatology, De Morbis Cutaneis, was published in 1572 by the Italian Girolamo Mercurialis, dermatology as a separate subject, was split off from general medicine only in the 19th century. In the early years of its existence, dermatologists relied only on detailed morphological descriptions of skin diseases. This did not help in reaching etiological conclusions. And on the other hand, it resulted in long-winded terms. To give an example, hyperkeratosis follicularis et parafollicularis incutum penetrans or Curly's disease. And this made dermatology a butt of jokes amongst our colleagues. Nevertheless, such detailed morphological descriptions did help to a certain extent in classification in dermatology. Today, unfortunately, the glorious age of morphological dermatology is lost. Let's try and revive it. The third era is the latter half of the 20th century and the early part of 21st century in which we are living. There has been a Nova-like explosion of knowledge in the field of dermatology, particularly in the branches of genetics and immunology. Finally, as dermatologists, we also pay attention to the evolution of rashes in individual skin diseases. For example, the Herald patch of pityriasis rosea, followed a few days later by erythematous scaly, smaller patches distributed in a Christmas tree pattern, gives us the diagnosis. Similarly, the vesicles of chickenpox, which come in crops, the evolution gives us the diagnosis, in addition to, of course, history and morphology. So evolution is very important in diagnosing skin diseases. So for a dermatologist, evolution can be considered under three heads. Evolution of the human race. Secondly, evolution of the subject of dermatology. And third, evolution of skin diseases. Osler said the best physicians must be the best observers. And this is particularly true for dermatology. I'd like to end with a quotation by the English author John Ruskin, who said, "The greatest thing a human soul ever does in this world is to see something and tell what he saw in a plain way. To see clearly is poetry, prophecy, and religion, all in one." And that about summons up the definition of a dermatologist.